The service of the ruinous powers is not something that is easily defined, as everyone expresses their devotion to chaos in a different way. Some may pray in private to hide their faith, whilst others will be firebrands and demagogues that convert those around them, and there are many variables in between and beyond. The same is true for those of the Adeptus Astartes who turn to the powers of chaos. Some renegades will pay lip service to the dark gods, whilst others will constantly strive for their own betterment via their patrons. There are many devotees in the Astartes, however, who not only offer themselves to chaos in their words or actions. For some, they will open themselves up to the Immaterian's inhabitants, giving up body and soul to the Neverborn and acting as host and anchor for them in the material realm. These warriors often end up mutated and will form a potent force in a Heretic Astartes army whilst also seeking their own ends. Though they come in many forms, these warriors and their masters are known collectively as Daemonkin. This is Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. When you hear the name Daemonkin, several different things might come to mind for what exactly I'm referring to. Most likely, certainly when I began my research, I assumed it referred solely to those Astartes who'd given themselves up and become demonically possessed. Whilst they are the most well-known element of a Daemonkin warband, they're not the be-all and end-all actually, far from it. On the one hand, these warbands do need leaders, someone to guide them on and off the battlefield, due to the almost guaranteed squabbling between the possessing demons about what the plan is. Demonic Possession is also not an easy thing to accomplish, not for machines as we discussed with demon engines, and certainly not for biological things like humans and space marines. As a result, the Daemonkin need individuals capable of accomplishing this task in order that they may become possessed in future, and we'll get to them in due time. On the other hand, in order to create a possessed individual, you need someone to possess in the first place. As a result, many Daemonkin warbands contain members who are not in fact possessed yet, but will be looking to be possessed in future if they can prove their worth. There are also those who haven't been possessed in the conventional sense of the word, yet have still been bonded with demons or mutated by the warp in their own way, and they are welcome and present in the warbands of the Daemonkin too. And of course, when you have individuals and warbands obsessed with possession, it only makes sense that many of them will not only possess the Astartes members who can be possessed, but also possessed vehicles too. Demon engines are not quite a staple of a Daemonkin force, but it would surprise me if there weren't at least a few present across the warband's life as both military assets and aids to their own demon-based actions. All told, a Daemonkin warband is something of a horror show to witness in action. Demonic incursions are maddening, but are ultimately based on beings from another dimension breaching reality, whereas the Daemonkin have willingly given up their own forms to the demons and become horrifically twisted as a result, and that dissonance of reality and unreality can be rather jarring in its own way. But now that we know who the Daemonkin are, and we will expand on their roster later, we need to think about what exactly they want from their possession and what they're actually seeking to do with themselves. Well, this largely depends on the god or gods that the Daemonkin's leaders or the possessing demons are aligned with. Those following a single god may be aimed at doing one particular thing, whilst those in more mixed warbands or devoted to Chaos Undivided arguably have a little more, though also maybe a little less freedom. As a rule of thumb, you can typically expect that if not just running rampant over a battlefield, the Daemonkin will be seeking to uncover relics and lore related to or touched by the warp in some way. In doing so, I assume they're looking for more numerous and simple methods to aid in the summoning of demons and their own possessions, especially when they go hunting for sites of dark power, which will probably make the rituals even easier. Not that they're ever simple though, demons and the warp are fickle like that. When they take to the battlefield, Daemonkin will typically rush into close combat as their mutations are mostly geared in that direction, and they're also possessed by demons, and 99% of those do that. Their demonic enhancements grant them extreme strength and agility and resilience to facilitate this style of warfare, whilst those yet to be granted the gift of possession will fight hard to impress the patron demons as well as the warband's leaders. On many occasions, they will have signed pacts with demons both greater and lesser, and it is not uncommon for small or even vast demonic hosts to enter reality as they are summoned by their Astartes allies or subjects. When this happens, the Daemonkin will act as, for want of a better word, anchors for the demons, keeping them in reality for far longer than they may ever be expecting to, or perhaps even giving up themselves to possession in some cases where they are deemed worthy. There are also regular users of the demon engine known as the Venom Crawler that we discussed in a previous log, which somehow thins the barrier between warp and reality to aid in the summoning of demons. All of this is true for Daemonkin as a whole, but there are Daemonkin War Bands devoted to each Chaos God as well that do things a little bit more uniquely. Those Daemonkin devoted to Tzeentch, for example, can end up trapped in the labyrinthine nonsense that defines the Architect of Fate. Whilst trying to find a way to balance the newly hybridized nature of their souls, they will fall under the puppetry of Tzeentch and be lost in their hopeless and deluded schemes. That doesn't mean they aren't dangerous though, as I bet more than a few of them are capable of harnessing warp fire, and the desperation to unravel fate can make a warrior incredibly powerful if you get in their way. On the other hand, Khorne Daemonkin are incredibly simple with their own goals. In the words of former captain of the World Eaters Khan, now known as the Betrayer, kill, maim, burn pretty much sums up exactly what they're all about. Khorne's thirst for blood and skulls is legendary, possibly even infinite, and the Khorne Daemonkin seek simply to claim and spill as much of it as possible in the Blood God's name. There is seemingly no strategy when these warbands go on the march, reason goes out the window, and only the desperate need to kill is left. Whilst the Daemonkin of Khorne seem to do everything to satisfy their patron deity, those of Slaanesh are more like Tzeentch Daemonkin in that they seek their own betterment in some way. The theory amongst them goes that their demonic possession will open up new possibilities for them, not specifically in combat, though that helps, but more generally instead. As you probably know if you've heard our logs on the Ruinous Powers before, Slaanesh's followers are often obsessed with seeking out the greatest of excesses and indulgences possible. According to the Slaaneshi Daemonkin, bonding with a demon should allow them to explore newer, ever more wild excesses than perhaps they could ever do as mortals. Their campaigns often involve testing that idea by hunting more and more of said excesses down. And finally, the Daemonkin devoted to Nurgle are perhaps even less surprising than their counterparts in terms of what they're all about. Like demons of Nurgle in particular, the Daemonkin become infested with all manner of generally hideous and debilitating diseases. But because they're servants of Nurgle, and probably because they're part demon too, they don't mind at all. In fact, they're possibly delighted about the whole affair, since it doesn't really affect them in any negative way, as we know. This may not make them the fastest of the Daemonkin, but they are blessed with a measure of the unholy resilience that characterizes the servants of the Plague God, and they're more than happy to spread their gifts to those unfortunate enough to get in their way. So, now that we have a better idea of the motivations and the broad strokes composition of a Daemonkin warband, let's dive into details and see what exactly you can look forward to should you ever have the misfortune to cross one. Unsurprisingly, the most recognisable aspect of the Daemonkin will be the individuals blessed by demonic possession, known simply as possessed. Unlike the majority of mortals possessed by a demon, these Astartes are usually given control over their own actions for most of the time. After all, this isn't a hostile takeover like many possessions, but instead a union of willing mortal and presumably consenting demon. However, the demon isn't about to completely leave alone, and instead enjoy its time in the Materium from the back seat, and this becomes especially obvious when the Daemonkin go to war. On those occasions, the demon does take over completely, unleashing the gifts it bestowed along with the potent Astartes physiology to great effect. With the demon in control, the mortal shell is no longer able to feel pain or limitation as the demon mutates it on the fly, and woe betide any unfortunate souls in the way of that unholy tandem. I believe that the very first of the possessed were created in the run-up to the Horus Heresy during Lorgar's pilgrimage to the Eye of Terror, as the Serrated Sons chapter of the Word-Bearers Legion would have many members possessed in order to become the Galvor back. Whilst every possessed is undeniably powerful, there are some that are stronger still. Perhaps unoriginally known as the Greater Possessed, these champions are much larger than other possessed, as well as being far more powerful. Interestingly, much like the demonic heralds that they are titled after somewhat, the Greater Possessed radiate a locus of demonic energy that even pure Neverborn have to acknowledge and be inspired by. Those who fight in the vicinity of a Greater Possessed, whether fully mortal, fully demon, or somewhere in between, fight with a frenzied fury you wouldn't normally expect to see. For the mortals, this makes a lot of sense, however, as the chance to become a Greater Possessed is pretty much their ultimate end goal as a Daemonkin. However, the creation of a Greater Possessed doesn't just come from sticking a powerful demon into an Astartes shell, though that is probably a part of it. Instead, it appears that, for the most part at least, this process is facilitated by a very common champion and leader for a Daemonkin War Band, known as a Master of Possession. These psykers are well versed in the art of possession, as their name might indicate, using their abilities to focus the power of the bound demon to prevent it from overwhelming the host Astartes and maintain the balance of the possessed. Their studies, and thus some of their raids, are often focused on learning more about demonic power, even going so far as to learn the true names of various demons in order to bind them later, though this is said to come with a cost of some kind. Unsurprisingly, their abilities regarding demons does not simply end with possession, and when needed in battle, a Master of Possession is more than capable of summoning demonic reinforcements right out of the Immaterium directly. They can also combine their abilities with an occasional presence in Daemonkin armies, the warp spiffs responsible for the creation of demon engines. I mentioned previously that the Venom Crawler was the most commonly found engine, and those have come from somewhere, obviously. I've even heard tell of full-scale industrial operations mass-producing demon engines when the Masters of Possession get to work. However, whilst they are valued and perhaps even revered for their abilities, especially in Daemonkin War Bands, the Masters of Possession are often far from trusted even by their underlings. They can detect the coming of a warp rift even before it opens, but they are almost renowned for duplicity and selling out to their allies and warriors if they deem it beneficial. Granted, they claim that it's beneficial for the Chaos Gods as opposed to themselves, but when you're already known for speaking in riddles and the like, you're not exactly someone you're going to take at face value. On some occasions, a Daemonkin warband can even be graced with the presence or leadership of perhaps the ultimate aspiration for a mortal servant of chaos. A Greater Possessed is a dream for a Daemonkin, but a apotheosis to a demon prince is surely the greatest end goal for any mortal follower. I don't actually know whether a possessed Daemonkin can be ascended to Demon Prince now that I think about it. I'd assume not, due to their not entirely mortal part demon status already, but these champions will still undoubtedly be an inspiration to the leaders of the warband or those not yet possessed and thus still able to be ascended. Speaking of the not possessed, a Daemonkin warband of course will be bulked out by a number of regular Chaos Space Marines that will form the main battle line of the army. Some of them will probably be out of duty, having sworn oaths to the Master of Possession or whoever else happens to be in charge, whilst others will be riding on the coattails of other Daemonkin in order to find their own possession or ascension. The most powerful of these, those who have truly sworn themselves to chaos, whether it's to one god or all, are known as aspiring champions of either their chosen god or chaos undivided. Given how the paths of such an individual often end, it wouldn't surprise me at all if a Daemonkin warband also has a few chaos spawn in it from time to time, though they probably don't live all that long relatively speaking, they are spawn after all. And to conclude, there are those fortunate, or possibly unfortunate few, who become bonded more tightly with machines and the warp, the Obliterators and the Mutilators. Obliterators are individuals infected with what is known as the Obliterator virus, becoming more attuned to and then ultimately fused with their weapons and armour. Exactly to what degree the warp and demons get involved as opposed to the virus being synthesized by mortals is slightly unclear, and I'm not about to go investigating the thing given how easily it spreads, but they are welcomed within Daemonkin warbands nonetheless as a very useful source of heavy fire support. By contrast, the Mutilators are definitely warp-touched, having supposedly been Chaos Terminators who became obsessed with the purity of melee combat. Like the Obliterators, they can change their weapons on the fly by communing with what they refer to as weapon spirits, effectively minor sentiences found within various weapons that have been assimilated into the soul of the Mutilator. They may not be quite as fast or as lithe as possessed, but they are capable of teleporting into battle like the Obliterators, and their variety of available weapons make them far more flexible and potentially far more dangerous than any other melee-oriented Daemonkin. And there you have it, an insight into the Daemonkin of Chaos, both God-aligned and undivided. Typically led by the Masters of Possession in search of more knowledge, bloodshed, whatever else they're looking for, the Daemonkin are incredible shock troops both alone and in a wider chaotic host. The union of Astartes and Daemon is not something that will be granted to all of them, perhaps not even to many, but the chance to become one of the possessed, or perhaps even something more, is definitely something with an undoubted appeal if you don't mind mutation and an occasional loss of bodily control. For now though, we must step away from the Daemonkin and move on to something new. In fact, I want to explore an event that, relatively speaking, only happened very recently in galactic history. Whilst it is technically completed, it marked the dawn of a new era, possibly for the galaxy, but definitely for the Imperium of Man, one of hope not for conquest, but survival in the face of its darkest hour in millennia. We don't know everything, but I feel we know enough to compile a log, so that is what we shall do. Thank you for watching Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.